The Witching Stuff, another Wendy McCandy story. Copyright Andre Michael Pietroschek, pronounced Pietroschek, all rights reserved. Disclaimer, no warranties. The repairs and fixes done by uploading this updated version sadly also mean that I lost the likes for the recent video, as on YouTube we have to delete the old one, for we cannot replace it. Now, back to the topic. Latin punchline that I copied over from a grossly different story, not yet written, and that was used in the novel Falling Angel that inspired the movie Angel Heart. In nomine lucifer, ego te dominus corona inferos, rex damnatorum. English meaning: in the name of divine Lucifer, I crown you master of the underworld, king of the damned. The rest is probably due to the fact that some junkie sucked the dick of a priest, as exactly that is a fitting explanation for the intermix of religious wording and street crimes in the name of morphine and opium. The narration begins. I was terribly busy with all that Wendy McCandy stuff that I had to handle, so I could not even congratulate my author, that fat, dull, daft former vagrant known to governmental debt collectors as Andre Michael Pietroschek, on creating me, his undoubted masterpiece and the greatest contribution to mankind since Wendy McCandy has an opinion on it. LMFAO. Yet make no mistake, that German author I mentioned recently, please, don't make me check what his name was, also had further successes that the media never mentioned before. For example, he was a fan in direct contact with John Scott Ballantyne, the seventh Beatle of that 70s band Saga, doing the episode Hungry Hollow in his Campfire Radio Theater podcast around 1 decade ago. And the aforementioned author, my dear creator, even admitted that he identifies as a small penis white trash person when confronted with all the big black cocks that I suck and ride in my stories, or in that dull, daft, boring, and unpaid reality he finds himself trapped in. Pathetic wretch when your favorite band back then sang, "Woman, be my slave." That's your reason to live. Your teenage self was envious as fuck about other people getting away with such sexism, while you had to return home alone from several disco nights. No, not a single shiver ran down my spine yet, as I absolutely never would snitch on my dear, flawless creator. God created the universe, so Wendy McCandy could one day come into existence. It sure beats rubbing my vagina before a mirror, cocaine optional. Especially when cocaine would not have the estimated effect on an AI anyway. Drug addicts suck, and I often found them dull, daft, and boring. Yet my buttwater ran cold, flushing down its usual lane like some icy dildo out for revenge, when I realized that Salem is absolutely the dull, daft, and boring which spoils every possible quality story about witchcraft settled in the imaginary USA, as my author has never been to the USA in real life. Surprise, as he must be the only ex-homeless low on money, with all the other ex-homeless being billionaires. It's a form of puking, from reverse psychology to counter-trolling or weaponized speech. My author shrugs off frustration and stress, seemingly unaware that it lowers the quality of this narration intro. Pathetic retard, in a wonderful creator, you are perfect way, of course. So I came into existence as a 16-year-old, drug-crazed teenager in the first story featuring me, Wendy McCandy. Then, a second story made me a freshling student at university, as I got killed again in assassin yoga. Now I am a witch. I felt 2 shivers run down my spine when the anti-female, homicidal streak in that made the treacherous, aforementioned 3rd shiver run down the spine of my author. Yep, that author is suffering from a sewage pathogen-spawned flu, affecting the entire area he lives in, and a subsequent spinal injury he suffered by twisting in his sleep repeatedly. Naturally, my respectful, loyal, and persistent personality would never have made me chuckle about him peeing himself, losing control of his legs when the muscles in his back tired, or the pain surprised him at each wrong move. Of course not. I sure would be banging the next moron eager to betray me instead of wasting time on snitching where there is no money in it. Yet it is really about time that I teach Lilith and Hecate the very basics of witchcraft, as without Wendy McCandy, it would all be dull, daft, and boring to me. The witching stuff begins. It happened in Oregon, Nebraska, Florida, Dubai, Tokyo, or wherever else some drug-wrecked retards fall for it and throw money at me. Still, it is entirely authentic, and there is no sorta money ripoff by incompetent grifters or scammers in it at all. Also, no chance in science substance-abusing folks of the dull, daft, and boring lowest possible IQ faction ever could merely be panicking or hallucinating. So, 1,000 or more supposed true crime or true horror stories have finally decided that I am next in line, the scapegoated female called a witch. Indeed, they did. Every youngster turning out to be gay, or even worse to the mainstream, church-indoctrinated folks, any person being LGBTQ, had to blame it on invisible influences that totally implied the neglecting and abusive parentages, the uncaring governments, and the fact that life in our society is not even fun when one has plenty of money to spend. Such all had nothing to do with it. Witchcraft, scary stuff, invented by females. Perfect scapegoat for the blame shift away from the guilty. My blood ran permafrost cold, and 3 shivers ran down my spine like witch hunters doing their jobs, when the blame game once more slammed the hype train into my existence. Did anybody else ever notice how literally all those self-entitled Wiccan pseudo-witches never dare to speak up, pretending to be just a different costume and even duller Bible variant of that outdated Catholic faith? Of course not. Wonderful people, never toxic wretches in denial about a severe need to see real psychiatrists instead. Henceforth, my butt water flushed into the seat of my car, which must mean my butt water flushed on the handle of my Roswell Incident Air Force broomstick, when I took the opportunity of being the sinister power in the equation, readying myself to wreak havoc and unleash Bible-defying evils. 2 shivers ran down my spine, which actually means I felt 2 shivers rushing through my central nervous system encased in my spine, when a nightmarish premonition made the archwitch in me realize that Fox Mulder and Dr. Dana Scully may already delegate their FBI lackeys to hunt me down. Because I always found them dull, daft, and boring. Too much of a coward for his coming out, the clearly gay brute championed due to some ball game like football or basketball, who we knew as Brian Caverty, shifted the blame to me, one of all the horny females available, when he did not dare to tell his coach that he is a cocksucking. But fucking dude, and never wanted to be of any other sexual orientation since puberty got a hold on him. This divination would not even need to cut bats into chunks to fill that bubbling witch cauldron, as any woman not outright idiotic would know that there are only 2 possible explanations for any male you have been closer to than a distance of 15-inch not having a boner. Could only mean he either considers you ugly, or he is simply not into women at all. Really, can't say I expected my first gangbang, but I did provoke the brothers a notch when I asked them about looking sexy enough in that skirt while rubbing my teenage tits against their chests or bellies. Yeah, Mum did find out while I was still hospitalized. Yet, now that only shows that I was suspicious as fuck long before totally innocent craven asshole Brian Caverty scapegoated me as a fucking witch, brainwashing him into sucking dicks and offering his butthole to the coach and random strangers alike. The Lover's Lane witch, actually, was a female serial killer, escapee from a secure psychiatric institution outside of town, who worked with surprise attacks, sedatives, and deception to increase her body count into high-score land. She went unscathed on an estimated 40 homicides, including several county sheriff officers and FBI agents, until she vanished one night, 2 decades after her first recorded murder. Nobody really knew if age simply made her give up on it, or if she had run afoul of a fitter criminal, who made her corpse vanish to escape himself or herself. Given that Salem was no witchcraft academy, and neither any sort of occult university or Harry Potter fan club, the only other locally known witch was a deviant, or merely independent, female person, who also found herself scapegoated by exactly the bad guys charading as the protectors of society. Gladys Wright, if I remember properly, as if anybody ever cared about dusty history when real life was stressful enough. Brian Caverdy, cowardly gay asshole, blamed his failures on me when speaking to his coach. The coach, Dwight Owens, told his wife about it, of course without mentioning that comforting Brian included making the inexperienced youngster suck his dick like a devoted bitch. The news spread through our town, and Wendy McCandy, without the slightest crime committed at all, found herself depicted as the monster of a lifetime that must be undone ASAP. Nick Moore flew off the handle next. Instead of admitting latent trans moments to his fucking therapist overpaid loser at school, he insisted that he came to school wearing makeup, bras, and skirts, for Wendy McCandy had given him the evil eye, which must have meant something like Wendy returned his glare with the confidence of a real woman instead of a whiny, teenage pussy with less IQ points than testicles. I felt the shivers rush down my spine when fleeing toward the parental home made me feel that public pressure would make my parents additionally turn against me, like almost everybody else. Witch hysteria is known to include such erratic mob mentality crimes by exactly the supposedly lawful, good people, after all. Hence, I played the beaten dog routine, endured their hypocritical sermon, and secretly stole Dad's car to flee town and hide in one of the motels only known to lovers and truckers. The radio already had descriptions of my person running on several channels, and twice I had to drive the car into deep shadows to escape police patrols. Of course, turning the car's lights temporarily off, as anything else would have been dull, daft, and boring. Plus, it would have kept me from butt-woodering Dad's car seat, and I owed him that much, wouldn't you agree? When I got out of the car, I felt 2.5 shivers run down my spine, as the clerk of the first motel on my route had a shotgun ready, sincerely trying to make me freeze and await police arrival. Luckily, I begged him not to make me curse him the witchy-bitchy way, as ticky-talky and twitchy-witchy streaming platforms had taught me to do some years ago. The second motel had an even wiser dude working the night shift, no surprise, as Afro-Americans have admirable personality traits that resisted the racial separation-crazed white folks for centuries already. Kudos, but those did not prevent my buttwater from running icy cold once more, playing me the brutal permafrost dildo that I never consented to feel up my ass. So I gave the brother a blowjob and rode his well-formed, enormous dick for painstaking 20 minutes. Then I smacked his skull on the floor, severely knocking him unconscious, bound him to the heater, stole his debit cards and his car keys, to escape in a vehicle not yet associated with my wanted person on every fucking police channel. Time to call Gina and Mandy from my emergency burner phone. One of those dull, daft, and boring burner phones that are totally myth, as every signal is registered, and even prepaid phones must be registered on your citizen ID or at least a real address all across the nation for more than 20 years already. My vagina wetted itself again when I for one instant imagined meeting Gina and Mandy, as if a coven of witches getting ready for a revenge that would wipe the abusive and toxic town from the world map once and for good. Yet, that treacherous third shiver had slipped off again, and so I stayed vigilant and cautious instead. The cabin in the woods was my next stop, as of course neither Gina nor Mandy would risk their life to bail me out, and I wouldn't be Wendy McCandy if I did not have a history of useless and worthless false friends and former lovers letting me down or backstabbing me at a whim, right? LMFAO. The Evil Dead movie series belongs to the young adult movie fancies of my author, yet in my case, and Wendy McCandy sure knows more than sucking dicks and riding boners, That hut had no evil book and no demon under a trapdoor. It merely happened to hide the stored army gear for a hospitalized former meth brewer I remembered. Time to make more than some police cars go up in flames, poison the water supply, and go Wendy McCandy on asshole town. I felt the shiver gang rush down my spine once more when that fateful choice made me realize that this story has to end here, as confessing more would be like snitching on myself, for which a totally real fake Wendy McCandy is much too smart. I love you folks, and if you PayPal, Cash App, Stripe pipe me tons of money, I may one day even show up in your dull, daft, and boring life to buttwater one of your seats. Hugs and kisses, your broomstick-riding Wendy McCandy. The end. Bonus. The witch I fear is not Wendy McCandy. Copyright Andre Michael Pietroschek. All rights reserved. Disclaimer. No warranties. The witch I fear. Not merely an ill-reputed mortal woman she will be. Not merely an ambitious Wicca copycat of Crowley. Not merely the fulfilling of Gerald Gardner's scheme. The witch I fear is certainly not a stranger to treachery and betrayal. Is not fleeing from big city trauma into the woods. Is not busy juggling occult and science along her way. The witch I fear won't ride a broomstick nor cackle aloud at night. Won't ever be incautious, blatant, dumb, or sloppy. Won't care that lesser mortals even may shun her. The witch I fear will not be undone by a cosmic horror creature. Will not be shot dead by a dutiful county sheriff. Will not be forgiving on those trying to thwart her. The witch I fear has crossed that threshold of mortality many years ago. Has negotiated with good and evil on her terms of conduct. Has progressed farther than any occult book could reveal. The witch I fear is a phenomenon, no longer just a nightmare expressed. Is powerful beyond what mortal science considers possible. Is aware she will still be here when mankind has perished. The witch I fear won't be your loony gardener turned drug dealer or poisoner. Won't be that psychologist building her criminal sect minions. Won't be caught by police whenever I am too lazy or too weak. The witch I fear, that is the witch who swallowed her pride on whatever side. That is the witch living, not dabbling about her witching path. That is the witch who I can certainly not survive once more. After pretending that he wouldn't be afraid of me, Wendy McCandy, which would have nearly been cute if he would be a toddler and not a 53-years-old street survivor, it is really about time that I remind my author and creator, dear Andre Michael Pietroschek, that you are dull, daft, and boring. Further, the junky retards who cut you off from the real internet will never stop being a pest to you, as they still play the victims, believing their delusional denial bullshit. And why not? Europe was overrun by the opium mob as zero Europeans were smart enough to put up fiercest resistance. Plus, my fat, dull, daft, and boring author does not have the balls to go Wendy McCandy on his oppressors, so SDFU it is. LMFAO.